Senator Chuck Schumer has been having kind of a rough last couple of weeks, hasn't he? Not undeserved from where I sit, but he caved to the Republicans and voted with the Republican majority in the Senate to pass a continuing budget resolution to prevent a government shutdown. And the problem with that, in the eyes of many folks, including me, was that of the two bad options that were presented to the Democrats in that situation, either voting with the Republicans to avert a government shutdown and pass a bill that a lot of people criticized as being a terrible bill because not only would it continue to fund the government, which isn't a bad thing, but it would have also given a lot more authority to the executive branch and specifically to President Trump in terms of spending and control over the budget. And it was just seen as a bad thing. And the other option would have been to allow the government to go into shutdown, which would have been terrible, but would have, as the thinking went, given the Democrats some leverage in negotiations. And they could have gone to the Republicans and said, okay, you need some of our votes to get the government open again, so let's negotiate. Now we kind of have you guys with your back against the wall, and you're going to have to make some concessions to us for once. Like, that was the hope that that would have been the situation, but it didn't happen because Senator Schumer, as the Senate minority leader, came out and said, I don't like it, but I'm voting to keep the government open because I think that's the better of the two options. And most Democrats still voted against it, but enough Democrats sided with Senator Schumer and voted for the continuing resolution that it was able to pass, and the government stayed open, and the Democrats lost all of their potential leverage to either get some things done for their agenda or to force the Republicans to abandon certain parts of their agenda, which so far has been incredibly destructive and also seems to be increasingly unpopular with the American people. It felt like an instance where the Democrats could have seized the momentum and they just let it slip through their fingers. And it's very, very frustrating. So Senator Schumer's been getting a lot of bad press because of that. And again, I say deservedly so, but that's not the main thing I want to talk about in this video. I will come back to it eventually, but there's something else that Senator Schumer has been in the news for recently that I actually want to focus on. He has a book coming out, and because of that, he's been giving interviews and appearing on talk shows and stuff. And there are two quotes, one from the book and one from an interview that he gave related to the book, and where he also discussed a lot of other topics, that sort of shed light on his attitude about the subject of anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism is a subject that Senator Schumer knows a lot about. He is a Jewish American. He is a very prominent Jewish American politician, and he has a lot of anti-Semitic insults and attacks directed at him. He has definitely been vilified by anti-Semites over the years, and especially lately, and most especially since Trump returned to the presidency. So he knows a lot about the subject, but his thoughts on anti-Semitism and what in his mind constitutes anti-Semitism are interesting, and I fear telling of some really deep issues and problems with his attitude and with him occupying such a senior leadership role in the Democratic Party. So the first quote about anti-Semitism that I want to bring to your attention is from his book, and it's quoted in an article on the book and on Senator Schumer that was published on the website Forward, which is a Jewish independent news site. And this article on Forward by Jacob Kornbluh quotes from Schumer's book. And here is the quote from Schumer's book on the subject of anti-Semitism and Donald Trump. Let me state unequivocally, I do not believe Donald Trump is an anti-Semite, Schumer writes, but he all too frequently has created the feeling of safe harbor for far-right elements who unabashedly or in coded language express anti-Semitic sentiments. There are a couple of things disturbing about that quote from Senator Schumer's book. One is the notion that Donald Trump providing safe harbor for anti-Semites doesn't make Donald Trump himself an anti-Semite. That's kind of an interesting line to draw. And then there's another line that is drawn in that same passage where he doesn't even say that the elements that Trump is giving safe harbor to, the far-right elements who traffic in anti-Semitism, he doesn't even call them anti-Semites. Now, he might intend to characterize them that way through this paragraph, but he doesn't say they're anti-Semites. He doesn't say Donald Trump himself isn't an anti-Semite, but he too frequently provides safe harbor for anti-Semites. He says far-right elements who express anti-Semitic sentiments. Again, are they not anti-Semites? Like, what is the difference between an anti-Semite and a person who unabashedly or in coded language expresses anti-Semitic sentiments? What is the difference? And why does Senator Schumer feel the need to parse that so precisely? There's nothing wrong with precision, and there's nothing wrong with accuracy, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to articulate one's position as precisely as possible. But in this instance, it seems a little weak that Senator Schumer would go to such rhetorical pains to avoid calling people who express anti-Semitic sentiments on the far right as anti-Semites, and also that he would feel the need to state unequivocally that he doesn't believe Donald Trump is an anti-Semite. Donald Trump, who, as this article in Forward reminds us, has said grossly anti-Semitic things about Chuck Schumer himself. He has accused Chuck Schumer of no longer being Jewish. Repeatedly, in public, he has said, well, Chuck Schumer is a Palestinian now. He's not Jewish anymore. He's a Palestinian now. Because Senator Schumer has occasionally expressed extremely tepid condemnation of some of what Israel has been doing in Gaza. And on that subject, let's move on to the other article, the other quote that I wanted to share with you on the subject of anti-Semitism from Senator Schumer. And this is from an interview he gave recently to the New York Times. It was published, I believe, on March 16th. And in the interview with the New York Times, Schumer is talking specifically about Israel's operations in Gaza and why he objects to characterizing Israel's assault on Gaza as genocide. Quoting Senator Schumer from the interview, "One final thing, this is very important. Jewish people were subject, at least in my judgment, to the worst genocide ever. I put in the book, on the day they got Kyiv, the Nazis asked 33,000 Jews to line up by a trench, stripped naked, and they shot them all dead. Every day, Auschwitz killed 20,000 people. My family was killed from a place called Short Kyiv in western Ukraine. And this was vicious and horrible. And it is vicious of the opponents to call this genocide. And by this, he means Israel's assault on Gaza. Criticize it? For sure. Say Israel went too far? For sure. And you know what it does? It increases anti-Semitism because they're making Israel and the Jewish people look like monsters, which they are not. And the interviewer, Lulu Garcia-Navarro, interjects and says, I will say it's a word that a UN special committee has used. The word, again, being genocide. And then Schumer responds, please. The UN has been anti-Israel, anti-Semitically against Israel. So let's just put these two pieces of information together. In the estimation of Senator Schumer, Donald Trump, who has accused Chuck Schumer of not being Jewish anymore because in Trump's mind, Schumer has been too supportive of Hamas, too supportive of the Palestinian people. But that doesn't make Donald Trump anti-Semitic in Senator Schumer's eyes. But you know who is anti-Semitic in Senator Schumer's eyes? The United Nations. And why is he saying that? In response to the interviewer pointing out that a UN special committee has described Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide. So calling what Israel is doing to Gaza genocide is anti-Semitic. But Donald Trump accusing Senator Schumer of not being Jewish anymore because supposedly he's too supportive of Gaza, that's not anti-Semitic. What an interesting line to draw here. Is anybody who is being taken seriously doing what Schumer is describing? Accusing all of Israel or all of the Jewish people of genocide because of what's happening in Gaza? I don't think so. Most people, including the protesters, including the most ardent pro-Palestinian voices in this conversation, most people are making it as clear as they can because they hear these accusations all the time of anti-Semitism. They're making it as clear as they can that when they charge people with genocide for what's happening in Gaza, they are talking specifically about the people in the Israeli government who have ordered it, first and foremost Netanyahu, and the soldiers in the IDF who have carried it out. Not everybody in Israel, not everybody who is a Jew all around the world. They are not trying to assign collective guilt. They are just pointing out that the people who are actually responsible for doing this to the people of Gaza are carrying out a genocide. And Senator Schumer worries about making Israelites and Jewish people seem like monsters, which again, given the history of how Jewish people have been treated, given the history of anti-Semitism, given the status of anti-Semitism, as it's often referred to as the mother hate, it is the form of bigotry that you find at the root of so many horrible things throughout human history and across human society. It is a completely justified thing to be worried about and to constantly be looking out for, right? It's not paranoia to be concerned about anti-Semitism, especially if you are a prominent Jewish person. But what else do you call someone like Benjamin Netanyahu? What else do you call someone who bombs a hospital, who bombs a refugee camp? What do you call someone who shoots an unarmed child, who murders an unarmed child? Is it not fair to call people who murder children monsters? Is it unfair to call the government who ordered the murder of those children, or at least ordered operations that they knew would inevitably result in the murder of those children? Is it unfair to those people in that government to call them monsters? You're not blaming Jewish people as a group. You're not blaming the Israeli public, the Israeli population as a group. You're blaming the people who did it, the people who ordered it, the people who planned it, the people who carried it out. But those are the people, even though Schumer disagrees with them and criticizes them and challenges them and doesn't seem to be a supporter of Netanyahu at all, but those are the people that Schumer still finds himself compelled to defend, at least against this specific charge, compelled to defend against the charge of genocide. But the United Nations, he'll call them anti-Semitic without even blinking. It's not as though the members of the UN or the members of the International Court of Justice or any of the other respected, recognized, legitimate international bodies that have described what Israel is doing in Gaza as genocide came to that conclusion on just a snap judgment after watching some news coverage for a few minutes, you know? They've looked into this. They've conducted their own independent investigations, in some cases taking months to examine what to many of us was fairly obvious, but they got in there and actually looked at it. And after exhaustive investigation of the conditions in Gaza and the actions of the Israeli government and the Israeli military, they concluded on that basis that what was happening is a genocide. Coming to that conclusion based on the evidence they examined, in the mind of Senator Schumer, makes them anti-Semitic, but not Donald Trump. I want to bring this back to the continuing resolution fight and the capitulation that lost the Democrats that fight, because I do think there is a commonality here. It feels like Schumer, in choosing what he will describe as anti-Semitic and what he won't describe as anti-Semitic, is doing something similar to what he was doing in choosing how to vote in the matter of the continuing resolution and to avert the government shutdown or not. He's trying to choose his battles, I think. He's trying to be strategic, but his judgment as far as what strategy ought to be followed in what situation seems to be kind of unreliable. There are certain times where your instinct to not be too provocative is the wrong way to go. I understand that Schumer is a politician. I understand that he is a senator, that he is a senior senator, that he is a leader of the Democratic caucus in the Senate, and he has been for a long time. And I'm sure a large part of that job is to try and bring as many people together and to not piss people off any more than you have to. So he is used to threading the needle, right? He's used to walking the tightrope, and he's used to expressing himself in as diplomatic and cautious and non-inflammatory a way as he possibly can. And maybe that's what's behind him refusing to describe Donald Trump as an anti-Semite. He feels like he doesn't want to draw that line. He doesn't want to accuse Trump of that because that will cost him something. That will make it more difficult to negotiate with Trump. I don't know exactly what he thinks he's going to lose at this point, given what Trump has already said about him. Like, how much worse is it going to get? If Senator Schumer comes out on TV tomorrow and says, you know what, Donald Trump is an anti-Semite, then all that shit he's been saying about me is anti-Semitic shit, and he's an anti-Semite for saying it. Like, how much worse is it going to get? How much worse are the relations between Trump and Schumer going to get after that, given the zero respect that Trump shows him at present? Like, why not just call it what it is? But for whatever reason, he's decided not to do that. Just as he decided that it wasn't worth going to a government shutdown in the standoff with the Republicans. And the impression that that creates in both instances is that Senator Schumer is just not willing to put up a fight. Now, he might say that discretion is the better part of valor, and that it's actually the wiser move to not put up a fight. But the problem is, a lot of us out here in the wilderness, a lot of us Democrats, a lot of us just plain old Americans, regardless of our political affiliation, regardless of what party we're registered to, if any, a lot of us have the impression that the Democrats are almost never up for a fight. Even in these times, even with Trump and his administration doing what they've been doing, even with the stakes as high as they are, it seems like the Democratic Party, the only serious opposition to Trump, at least politically, is just not up for a fight. And will choose to not fight whenever that is an option. And that is unacceptable to me. Senator Schumer, this is not good enough. And if you are not up for a fight, maybe it's time that you stepped aside and made room for someone who was, if there even is such a person, who could fill your shoes at this moment. And I hope there is, and I think there is. There must be. There are some really fine Democrats in the Senate right now. I'm sure somebody would be willing to step up and be a lot more strong and combative against Trump and against the Republicans than you, Senator Schumer, have unfortunately shown yourself to be. And here's the bit that I haven't told you, and you might know this already, but just in case you don't. The book that Chuck Schumer has just recently published, that he is going on to these tours to promote. The title of that book is Antisemitism in America, the book where he wrote, quote, "Let me state unequivocally, I do not believe Donald Trump is an anti-Semite." That book is about anti-Semitism in America. It's not just a generic political memoir. It's about the subject of anti-Semitism. And I am not going to accuse Senator Chuck Schumer of being incapable of recognizing anti-Semitism when he sees it. I do not believe that is the case. I believe that when he sees unequivocal, unambiguous anti-Semitism, which he unfortunately probably sees on a daily basis, that he knows exactly what it is. And I believe in his heart of hearts, he knows exactly what Donald Trump is. But he's not willing to say it. And he is either not willing to say it because he's afraid to, for whatever reason, or he's not willing to say it because he has decided that it is a smarter political strategy not to say it. I don't know which one of those two things is true. I suspect at least one of them is. It may be a combination of the two, but I suspect at least one of them is the reason why Senator Schumer has so far declined to describe Donald Trump as an anti-Semite. But it doesn't matter which one it is, because either one of them is enough to prove that for all of his other positive attributes and for all of his contributions and for all of the good things he has done throughout his political career, right now, in 2025, Senator Chuck Schumer is not the kind of person that the Democratic Party needs. He's not the kind of person the American people need. He is not the kind of person called for by this moment.